The Empire declared war on humanity and got the most absurd response possible. Part. The enormous screen in the United Nations General Assembly Hall showed the alien's face. Ambassador Trell of the Vicarian Empire stared down at the gathered human representatives with 4 cold yellow eyes. His gray skin had a metallic sheen under the lights of his ship, and the breathing apparatus attached to his face made a soft hissing sound between his words. The High Council has deliberated, Trell announced. The Vicarian Empire hereby declares war on the planet Earth and all human colonies. You have 30 Earth days to surrender all territories beyond your home solar system, cease all further space exploration, and begin payment of the required protection resources. Jack Murphy, Earth's chief diplomat, stood frozen at the podium. This was humanity's first major interstellar diplomatic summit. It wasn't supposed to end with a war declaration. Ambassador Trell, Jack said, working to keep his voice steady, there must be some misunderstanding. We've only just established peaceful contact with your empire. We have no hostile intentions. The decision is final, Trell replied. Your species advances too quickly. In merely 2 centuries, you've gone from primitive combustion engines to settling 14 exoplanets. The Empire has ruled the Orion Arm for 3,000 years. We will not permit a potential rival. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. Major Samantha Wright, the military attaché standing beside Jack, whispered, "That went well." "Get me the Security Council," Jack told his assistant. "Now." Within 3 hours, the 15 members of the United Nations Security Council gathered in an emergency session beneath the UN building in New York. The mood was grim as military experts presented their assessments. General Frank Howard pointed to the holographic display showing the known territory of the Vicarian Empire. "Based on our limited intelligence, they control approximately 6,000 star systems. Their military capabilities are centuries beyond ours. A conventional war would be..." He paused, brief and unsuccessful. "So we surrender?" asked the representative from Nigeria. "If we surrender," replied the Chinese delegate, "we give up all our colonies and restrict ourselves to one solar system. Millions of colonists would lose their homes." The room erupted in overlapping voices and arguments. Jack Murphy watched from the side, his mind racing. He noticed one person sitting quietly amid the chaos, Dr. Alan Fletcher, a cultural anthropologist, specializing in theoretical xenopsychology. The scientist was studying his tablet, seemingly ignoring the heated debate. "Dr. Fletcher," Jack called out, silencing the room. "You've been analyzing the Vicarian since our first contact. Any insights?" Fletcher looked up, seeming surprised to be addressed. He was a small man with thick glasses and rumpled clothes, looking out of place among the politicians and military leaders. "Well," he said, standing awkwardly, "I've been studying their language patterns and cultural references from our limited interactions. The Vicarians are," he searched for words, "extremely rigid. Their empire has survived for millennia through strict adherence to protocols and hierarchy." "How does that help us?" demanded the Russian representative. "They expect us to either fight or surrender," Fletcher continued, gaining confidence. "Their entire social structure is built on predictable responses. Their language doesn't even have a word for improvisation. They literally cannot conceive of actions outside their established frameworks." Jack leaned forward. "Are you suggesting we do something unpredictable?" Fletcher nodded enthusiastically. "More than that? I believe we should do something absurd. Something so outside their understanding of war and diplomacy that their entire decision-making process would malfunction." The room fell silent. "Like what?" asked Secretary General Dorothy Miller, her voice skeptical. Fletcher smiled slightly. "Like responding to their declaration of war with a thank-you note and a gift basket." 2 days later, Jack Murphy found himself in what had once been a conference room and was now apparently a party planning committee. The walls were covered with colorful diagrams and strange ideas. "So instead of mobilizing our military," Jack said slowly, "we're going to throw them a party?" "Not just any party," Dr. Fletcher replied, eyes bright with excitement. "The biggest, most confusing welcome celebration in human history. were going to act as if their declaration of war was actually an invitation to join some kind of exclusive Galactic Club. Major Wright, who had surprised everyone by supporting Fletcher's plan, pointed to a map of Earth. We'll coordinate celebrations in every major city. Parades, fireworks, the works. We're calling it the Intergalactic Friendship Festival. And the military response? Jack asked. Oh, we're still preparing those, said General Howard. But, quietly, behind the scenes, Operation Absurdist Response is our public face. 3 weeks later, when the Vicarian delegation arrived in a massive warship to receive Earth's formal surrender, they instead found themselves surrounded by celebration. Their communications channels were flooded with cheerful messages welcoming them to Earth. News broadcasts showed people in major cities wearing costume versions of Vicarian breathing apparatus and holding signs that read, "Thank you for noticing us," and "Best alien friends forever." Admiral Keth Varek, the stern Vicarian commander, stood rigidly in the shuttle bay of his flagship as it docked at the International Space Station. He was prepared to accept surrender documents, not the colorful welcome committee that greeted him. Secretary General Miller approached with a broad smile. "Admiral, welcome to Earth. We're so honored you've selected our little planet for this wonderful opportunity." The Admiral's translator took a moment to process her words. "I am here to accept your surrender," he stated firmly. "Oh, there must be some translation error," Miller said, still smiling. "We've prepared a formal response to your message." She handed him an ornate basket filled with Earth souvenirs, including snow globes of famous landmarks, artisanal chocolates, and several plush toys of Earth animals. The Admiral stared at the basket. "This is not a surrender document." "Of course not. It's a welcome gift." "Oh, and this..." She handed him a digital tablet. "A lifetime subscription to Cat Videos Monthly. Our research shows that feline behavior videos produce serotonin in most sentient species. We thought your crew might enjoy them during long space voyages." Behind the smiling human delegation, Lieutenant Commander Peter Garcia watched the Admiral's reactions carefully. As lead of the Xenopsychology response team, he had helped craft every element of this encounter to produce maximum confusion. The Admiral's breathing apparatus hissed more rapidly, a sign of stress, according to their research. "This is not the proper protocol for an Imperial war declaration," he finally said. "War?" Secretary General Miller's expression became concerned. "Oh dear, there must be a terrible misunderstanding. We interpreted your message as an invitation to join the galactic community. That's why we're so excited and grateful." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Keth Varek found himself completely without a protocol to follow. The Empire had conquered 327 species. All had either fought back or surrendered. None had thrown a party. "I must consult with the High Council," he finally said. As the Vicarian delegation retreated in confusion, Commander Garcia exchanged a subtle nod with Secretary General Miller. Phase 1 of Operation Absurdist Response was complete. The humans had bought themselves time. Now, for Phase 2, the Empire declared war on humanity and got the most absurd response possible. Part 2. Admiral Keth Varek paced the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. For 2 weeks, the massive Vicarian warship had orbited Earth while its confused commander sent message after message to the High Council. They still refused to surrender or fight, Keth Varek told the holographic image of Emperor Zox Viral. Instead, they continued to send us gifts. The Admiral gestured to a corner of his command deck where a growing pile of Earth items sat. Comedy movies, music albums, cookbooks, board games, and something called a karaoke machine that several junior officers had been caught using during off-duty hours. Most disturbing is their insistence that our war declaration was a cultural invitation, the Admiral continued. They've opened their communication channels, tourist destinations, and learning institutions to our people. Yesterday they sent us thousands of student exchange program applications. The Emperor's expression darkened. This is clearly a deception tactic. Proceed with the war plan. Begin bombardment of their major military installations. As you command. Keth Varek bowed. secretly relieved to finally have clear orders. On Earth, inside the underground command center beneath the Pentagon, Lieutenant Commander Peter Garcia watched the Vicarian fleet movements on a massive display screen. "They are repositioning for attack," he announced to the gathered military and civilian leaders. Just as Dr. Fletcher predicted. All eyes turned to Alan Fletcher, who looked even more rumpled than usual after weeks of non-stop work. "The Vicarians have a rigid military doctrine," Fletcher explained. "When confused, they always fall back on established protocols. Their fleet formations are practically identical to the ones they used in the Proxima Centauri campaign 3 centuries ago." "So what's our next move?" asked General Howard. Fletcher smiled faintly. "Phase 2. The unexpected counterattack." Major Samantha Wright stepped forward. "We've converted 500 communication satellites into what we're calling friendship probes. Each contains no weapons, just broadcasting equipment loaded with Earth entertainment and cultural materials." "Entertainment?" the French representative asked skeptically. "Trust me," Dr. Fletcher said. "To a society as rigidly controlled as the Vicarian Empire, our freedom of expression is more destabilizing than any weapon." As the Vicarian fleet prepared to fire on Earth's military bases, something unexpected happened. Hundreds of small objects launched from Earth and its lunar bases. The Vicarian defense systems identified them as missiles and prepared to intercept, but the objects made no attempt to hit the Vicarian ships. Instead, they spread out across the solar system and beyond, broadcasting on all frequencies. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, a junior communications officer named Trelvox reported with confusion, "Admiral, the human devices are transmitting entertainment programs." "Weapons?" demanded Kethvarik. "No, sir. They contain cooking competitions, humor performances, music, and dramatic stories. They're heading to all parts of the Empire." The Admiral frowned. "Destroy them. We've neutralized 23, but hundreds have already jumped to faster-than-light travel. They're designed to broadcast even after being damaged." Kethvarik was about to order the bombardment of Earth when his tactical officer interrupted. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's being broadcast to our entire fleet simultaneously." On screen appeared Jack Murphy dressed in formal diplomatic attire. "Greetings, Admiral. We understand there's been a misunderstanding about our response to your message. To clear this up, we've dispatched friendship probes throughout your territory to better acquaint your citizens with Earth culture. Additionally, we've established a special communications channel for you to enjoy our most popular entertainment formats." The screen split to show Earth programs, cooking shows, stand-up comedy, reality TV contests, and soap operas. "What trickery is this?" demanded Kethvarik. Jack's expression remained pleasant. "No trick, Admiral, just cultural exchange. By the way, we've registered Earth as a subscription-based entertainment service provider under Vicarian Legal Code, Section 87B. Our legal team discovered this makes us exempt from your war protocols, as entertainment entities are classified as essential services under imperial law." The Admiral stared in disbelief. During his 3 centuries of military service, no species had ever found a legal loophole in imperial war doctrine. Meanwhile, across the Vicarian Empire, the effects of Earth's friendship probes were spreading rapidly. Lower-ranking species within the Empire, long accustomed to rigid roles and limited freedoms, found human culture fascinating and subversive. On Proxima Vec, the imperial capital planet, Grand Minister Kral received an alarming report. The mining colonies of Sector 14 have decreased production by 30%. Workers are gathering to watch human television shows during shift hours. Similar reports flooded in from across the Empire. Military vessels broke formation to watch baking competitions. Administrative centers reported staff using strange new phrases like coffee break and casual Friday. Most troubling were the unauthorized gatherings forming on dozens of planets. Imperial citizens were hosting watch parties for Earth programs, sharing ideas about democracy, free expression, and weekends. Back on Earth, Dr. Olivia Martinez, the planet's leading xenolinguist, worked with a team analyzing the Vicarian reactions. "It's working better than we anticipated," she told Secretary General Miller. "Their society is so controlled that our everyday freedoms appear revolutionary to them." "How long until the Emperor realizes what's happening?" asked Miller. "Too late," replied Dr. Fletcher, entering the room with a tablet displaying data streams. "He just dispatched his elite guard to arrest Earth's representatives for disrupting Imperial productivity." "But we don't have representatives in Vicarian space," Jack pointed out. Fletcher smiled. "We do now. While the Admiral was distracted by our friendship probes, we deployed Operation Coffee Shop." On screens around the room appeared images of small storefronts opening across Vicarian territory. Each bore the simple sign, Earth Cultural Exchange Center, and offered free samples of coffee, pizza, and improvisational comedy classes. When the Emperor's guards arrived at these locations, they found lines of Vicarians and other species waiting patiently for their turn to experience Earth culture. Arresting the human staff would cause the exact public disturbance the Emperor hoped to avoid. "The next phase is critical," Dr. Fletcher told the gathered leaders. "The Emperor will try something desperate." As if on cue, Admiral Kethvarik appeared on the main view screen, his breathing apparatus working overtime as he struggled to maintain composure. "In response to your illegal cultural contamination, the Vicarian Empire will now execute a full military response. You have violated the sanctity of our society and will be punished accordingly." "That's unfortunate," Jack replied, calmly, "especially since the latest episode of Baking Battle Intergalactic Edition was scheduled to air tomorrow. The finale has been extremely popular throughout your territory." The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "What does that have to do with military matters?" "Oh, nothing," Jack said with a casual wave. "Just that several of your colony worlds have planned viewing celebrations. Canceling it might cause disappointment." As Jack spoke, Commander Garcia showed him a message on his tablet. Across the Vicarian Empire, protests had already begun at the news of a full military response against Earth. Not because the citizens supported humans politically, but because they didn't want to lose access to Earth entertainment. The absurd response was working. Phase 3 could now begin. The Empire declared war on humanity and got the most absurd response possible. Part 3. The 30-day ultimatum from the Vicarian Empire expired at midnight, Greenwich Mean Time. In the United Nations Emergency Command Center, Earth's leaders waited, tensely for the Empire's next move. "Any word from Admiral Kethvarik?" Jack Murphy asked, his eyes tired from weeks of crisis management. Major Samantha Wright shook her head. "Nothing since his last threat. But our sensors show the Imperial fleet is massing at the edge of our solar system." "Then it's time for Phase 3, said Dr. Fletcher, who had barely slept in days. "Operation Shell Game." Secretary General Dorothy Miller looked concerned. "Are we certain this will work? The risks are enormous." "Nothing about this plan has been certain," Fletcher replied, with a small smile. "That's why it's working. The Vicarians can't predict what they can't comprehend." In a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Colonel Lisa Brennan supervised final preparations for humanity's most audacious move yet. The room hummed with energy as dozens of scientists monitored a complex array of quantum displacement devices. "All stations report ready," her assistant said. Lisa took a deep breath. "Begin Operation Shell Game." Throughout the solar system, thousands of specially designed satellites activated simultaneously. The technology was experimental, developed in secret over the past decade. Each device created a small quantum field that, when linked together, could bend light and other electromagnetic signals around the entire solar system. As the Vicarian armada approached Earth, their sensors detected something impossible. The entire solar system appeared to be vanishing. Planets, moons, asteroids, and all human structures seemed to fade from both visual observation and scanning equipment. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Admiral Kethvarik stared in disbelief at the emptiness, where Earth's star system should be. "What trickery is this?" he demanded. "Where have they gone?" "Unknown, Admiral," replied his science officer. "Our instruments detect unusual quantum fluctuations, but no trace of the planets or human installations. This is impossible. No, civilization has the technology to move entire planets. Apparently the humans do, the officer said quietly. Keth Varric pounded his fist on the command console. Find them. Search every sector. As the confused Vicarian fleet spread out to search for the missing solar system, they failed to notice the small, unmanned vessels slipping past their defenses. Each of these stealth craft carried a special payload, not of weapons, but of culture. Inside the quantum-hidden Earth, Commander Peter Garcia coordinated the mission from a bunker in what had once been NORAD. Stealth delivery units have reached the Vicarian fleet, he reported, deploying payloads now. On the Vicarian vessels, crew members discovered mysterious packages appearing throughout their ships. Each box was brightly wrapped with a bow and contained Earth souvenirs, tourism brochures, sample products, and, most disturbingly to the Imperial hierarchy, university application forms. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded Admiral Keth Varric, holding up a coffee mug that read "I Earth" and a brochure for Earth University Extension Campus. Before his officers could respond, all communication screens throughout the Imperial fleet activated simultaneously. Jack Murphy's face appeared, looking relaxed and friendly. "Greetings, Admiral. We hope you're enjoying your welcome packages. We noticed your fleet seemed lost, so we thought we'd check in." "Where is your solar system? What have you done?" Keth Varric demanded. Jack looked confused. "It's right where it's always been. Perhaps your navigation systems need updating? We'd be happy to share our star charts." The Admiral's breathing apparatus hissed rapidly as his agitation grew. "This is an act of war." "War?" Jack replied, looking genuinely puzzled. "I thought we clarified this misunderstanding. We've registered as an entertainment and educational provider under your own Imperial code. War against us would be like declaring war on a streaming service." While this conversation distracted the Admiral, something even more subversive was happening throughout his fleet. Junior officers and crew members from the various subject species were secretly watching Earth programs, sharing human music, and even applying to Earth universities. On the lowest deck of the Imperial flagship, a young Vicarian named Loxariel carefully filled out an application for Earth University's xenobiology program. Like many younger Vicarians, he had grown fascinated by human culture and its strange concepts of personal choice and career satisfaction. Loxariel was not alone. Throughout the Empire, millions of citizens were being exposed to human ideas and values. The rigid social structure that had maintained Imperial stability for millennia was facing its greatest challenge, not from weapons, but from coffee, comedy shows, and university applications. In a secure conference room on what appeared to be an empty region of space but was actually the cloaked Earth, Dr. Olivia Martinez presented her findings to the UN Security Council. "The Empire is experiencing unprecedented social disruption," she explained. 3 major subject species have already submitted formal requests for voting rights based on our democratic model. The Imperial economy is showing signs of strain as workers begin taking personal days and demanding work-life balance. "And the military threat?" asked the Chinese representative. Colonel Brennan answered that question. "Their fleet remains in disarray. Half their ships are searching for our missing planets, while the other half are dealing with internal disruptions. We've intercepted communications suggesting that entertainment viewing parties are being held on multiple Imperial vessels, despite direct orders to stop." Jack Murphy laughed softly. "So their war machine is being undermined by baking shows and sitcoms?" "Essentially, yes," Dr. Fletcher confirmed. "Their society has been so controlled for so long that our everyday freedoms appear revolutionary to them. The Empire designed its systems to resist military threats, not cultural ones." Secretary General Miller looked thoughtful. "How long until they regroup and attack anyway?" "That's the real problem," Fletcher admitted. "Their High Admiral Jarex is urging the Emperor to launch a full-scale assault regardless of the cultural contamination. If they attack with their full force, our defenses won't hold, quantum cloaking or not. Then we need to implement the final phase," Miller decided. "Operation Last Laugh." As she spoke, an aide rushed into the room and handed a message to Commander Garcia. He read it quickly, his expression changing from concern to amazement. "You won't believe this," he said. "We just intercepted a private communication from Admiral Kethvarek's ship, his own offspring, along with the children of 12 other high-ranking. Imperial officials have secretly applied for Earth University scholarships. They've been participating in online courses for months." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. "The next generation of the Empire's leadership," Jack said slowly, "is already being influenced by Earth culture." Dr. Fletcher nodded. "This is exactly what we hoped for. The Emperor can't maintain control if his own future leaders are embracing human ideas." "How do we use this?" asked General Howard. "We make it public," Fletcher said simply. "Throughout the Empire." And so, as the Vicarian fleet continued its fruitless search for Earth's vanished solar system, every communication device across the Imperial territory simultaneously received a simple message, a list of names, including the offspring of the Emperor himself who had applied to study at Earth institutions. The message ended with a single sentence: "The future chooses freedom. Why doesn't the Empire?" In his imperial palace, Emperor Zoxviral received news of this latest development with growing horror. The carefully constructed stability of 3,000 years was unraveling in a matter of weeks, all because of a species that refused to either fight properly or surrender. "Contact Earth," he ordered his communications officer. Tell them we are willing to discuss terms." The Empire declared war on humanity and got the most absurd response possible. Part 4, 3 days after the Emperor's message, an unusual meeting took place in neutral space. The Vicarian flagship Eternal Dominion hovered opposite a much smaller, human vessel called the Diplomatic Envoy. Between them floated a temporary structure that made Admiral Kethvarek's breathing apparatus work overtime when he first saw it. "What manner of place is this?" he demanded as his shuttle approached the brightly colored circular building with a large cartoon rodent painted on its exterior. Jack Murphy, sitting across from him in the shuttle, smiled pleasantly. "It's a replica of a Chuck E. Cheese restaurant, a beloved Earth establishment where important agreements are often celebrated. We thought it would be the perfect neutral ground for our discussions." Inside, the meeting space had been modified to accommodate both human and Vicarian biology, but still maintained much of its original character. Pizza sat on warming trays. Arcade games blinked and chimed along the walls. A band of animatronic animals stood frozen on a stage in the corner. Emperor Zoxviral himself had come to negotiate, the first time in 700 years that an emperor had left the imperial capital for diplomatic talks. He sat rigidly at a plastic table surrounded by his advisors facing Secretary General Miller and the human delegation. "Let us be clear," the emperor began, his voice deep and echoing through his ornate breathing apparatus. "The Empire has not surrendered. We are merely discussing a potential adjustment to our previous declaration." "Of course," Secretary General Miller nodded respectfully. "We understand completely. Perhaps we could start by addressing the cultural exchanges already taking place throughout your territory." "Those were not authorized," snapped High Admiral Jarek, standing at the Emperor's right hand. "Your infiltration of our communication systems is an act of war." Dr. Olivia Martinez, sitting beside Miller, spoke up. "Actually, according to Imperial Code Section 42, Subsection 7, which governs new species contact, we simply responded to your initial communication in a manner consistent with our cultural practices. Our research shows no prohibition against sharing entertainment and educational opportunities." The Emperor's 4 eyes narrowed. "You have studied our laws very thoroughly. We find your civilization fascinating," Dr. Fletcher replied with genuine enthusiasm. 3,000 years of stable governance is quite an achievement. We simply wanted to understand the culture that created such longevity." While the main negotiations continued, Commander Peter Garcia observed from a nearby table, focused not on the leaders, but on the younger Vicarians in the Emperor's entourage. He noticed how they kept glancing at the human delegation with barely concealed curiosity. One young aide was even wearing what appeared to be a small earth pin partially hidden under his uniform collar. Chief Negotiator Nancy Chen cleared her throat and presented a document to the Emperor. "We've prepared what we're calling a Cultural Understanding Agreement. Rather than viewing our relationship as adversarial, we propose a comprehensive partnership. Admiral Keth Varek looked at the document suspiciously. This reads like a surrender. Surrender. You're agreeing to recognize Imperial authority. In certain matters, yes, Nancy said smoothly. Just as you're recognizing Earth's authority in others. As the Vicarian leaders reviewed the document more carefully, their confusion grew. The agreement appeared to give the Empire nominal control over human expansion but granted Earth exclusive management of all cultural and educational services throughout Imperial space. It created a mutual defense alliance that effectively prevented any Imperial military action against Earth. Most importantly, it established special economic zones where Earth businesses could operate freely within the Empire. This is not a surrender document, High Admiral Jarrex objected. This is a trade agreement heavily favoring Earth. Is it? Nancy asked innocently. We've simply formalized the arrangement that has already begun naturally. Your citizens want access to our culture and education. We're providing a framework to make that possible while respecting Imperial governance. The Emperor studied the humans closely. You never intended to fight us. We're not warriors by nature, Jack Murphy explained. We prefer building connections to destroying them. During a recess in the negotiations, Colonel Lisa Brennan received an urgent message from Earth. She quietly informed Secretary General Miller, who nodded and whispered instructions to Dr. Fletcher. When the talks resumed, Fletcher approached the Emperor with a small box. A token of Earth's goodwill, he explained, opening it to reveal a collection of novelty items. Whoopee cushions, joy buzzers, and kazoos, all bearing the Imperial seal. The Emperor stared at these strange objects. What function do these serve? They're traditional human diplomatic gifts, Fletcher explained with complete seriousness. Instruments of joy and surprise that symbolize the unexpected nature of new friendships. To everyone's astonishment, a young Vicarian aide stepped forward. If I may, Your Eminence, he said, taking a whoopee cushion from the box. He demonstrated its use, producing a rude noise that echoed through the restaurant. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then, from one of the junior human diplomats, a small giggle escaped. This was followed by a chuckle from a young Vicarian. Within moments, the tension broke as laughter spread through both delegations. Even Admiral Keth Varek's breathing apparatus seemed to hiss in a rhythm that might have been Vicarian laughter. The Emperor, however, remained stoic. These matters are serious. The future of the Empire is at stake. That's precisely why joy is needed, Dr. Fletcher said. The most enduring partnerships are built on mutual appreciation, not fear. As the negotiations continued, Commander Garcia received word from Earth's monitoring stations. Across the Empire, celebrations had begun. Somehow, news of the peace talks had leaked, and citizens were gathering in public spaces, sharing human foods and entertainment. The rigid Imperial society was transforming before their eyes. By the end of the Earth Day, the Emperor found himself in an impossible position. His own advisors were divided. The younger generation clearly favored closer ties with Earth. Tipurin. Subject species had already submitted formal petitions for improved status based on human democratic principles. We require time to consider these proposals, the Emperor finally announced. Of course, Secretary General Miller agreed. In the meantime, would you and your delegation care to try some pizza? It's a traditional Earth food served at important celebrations. As the Emperor reluctantly accepted a slice of pepperoni pizza, Colonel Brennan showed Jack Murphy her tablet. On the screen, live feeds from across the Empire showed Imperial citizens celebrating what they already believed was a new era of cooperation with Earth. They think it's already decided, Jack whispered. In a way it is, Lisa replied. The old empire effectively ended the moment they discovered our culture. What we're negotiating now is just the formal recognition of what's already happened. The Emperor, overhearing this exchange, looked at his pizza slice thoughtfully. Your strategy was never about military power. No, Jack confirmed. It was about offering something more powerful than fear, choice. As if to emphasize this point, the animatronic band in the corner suddenly activated, playing a cheerful rendition of It's a Small World. Several young Vicarians began swaying to the music, while High Admiral Jarex looked on in horror. The Emperor watched his changing empire and made his decision. The Empire declared war on humanity and got the most absurd response possible. Part 5-6 months after the historic meeting at the Chuck E. Cheese diplomatic station, Jack Murphy stood at a window in the newly constructed Intergalactic Council, headquarters in Geneva. The massive building combined Vicarian architectural strength with human artistic touches. Outside, humans mingled freely with Vicarians and other species from throughout what was now officially called the Galactic Cooperative. "Quite a view, isn't it?" said Dr. Alan Fletcher, joining him at the window. The scientist looked more rested, these days, though his clothes were still somewhat rumpled. "Hard to believe this all started with a war declaration," Jack replied. "Sometimes I still expect to wake up and find out the Empire has destroyed us all." "The Empire couldn't destroy what it didn't understand," Fletcher said with a smile. "That was always our advantage." In the 6 months since the Emperor signed the agreement, human culture had spread throughout formerly imperial space like wildfire. The rigid hierarchy that had maintained stability for millennia was gone, replaced by a more flexible system that maintained peace while allowing greater freedoms for all citizens. "Ambassador Murphy?" a young aide called from the doorway. "There, ready for you in the main chamber." Jack straightened his tie and followed the aide through the hallways of the headquarters. The building bustled with activity as representatives from hundreds of worlds prepared for the formal dedication ceremony. In a private preparation room, Secretary General Dorothy Miller was reviewing her speech with Major Samantha Wright. Now, General Wright, who headed Earth's new defense cooperation with former Imperial forces. "Are we really going through with the ceremonial part?" Samantha asked, eyeing a table that held an assortment of Earth novelty items. "The Emperor specifically requested it," Miller replied. "Apparently he's developed a sense of humor." The main chamber of the Intergalactic Council was a vast, circular room with seating for representatives from all member worlds. At the center stood a raised platform where dignitaries from both human and former Imperial worlds gathered for the historic occasion. Emperor Zox Viral, who now held the title of Cooperative Overseer, stood with surprisingly relaxed posture. The breathing apparatus he and all Vicarians wore had been redesigned by human engineers to be more comfortable and less intimidating, with colorful customization options that had become wildly popular among younger Vicarians. "Representatives of the Galactic Cooperative," the Emperor began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. 6 standard months ago, the Vicarian Empire declared war on humanity. Today we declare something else entirely, a new era of partnership and shared prosperity. The chamber erupted in applause. Jack noticed Admiral Keth Varric, now serving as ambassador to Earth, attempting to use a human-style clap despite his Vicarian anatomy, making it somewhat awkward. "The traditional Imperial approach would have been to crush resistance and impose our will," the Emperor continued. "Instead, humanity showed us a different path. They responded to our aggression with friendship." He paused, his 4 eyes blinking in what humans had learned was an expression of amusement. Highly confusing friendship, but friendship nonetheless. Laughter rippled through the chamber. In doing so, they revealed a truth that 3,000 years of imperial rule had forgotten. Diverse perspectives create stronger societies than uniform ones. As the ceremony continued, Dr. Olivia Martinez sat beside Commander Peter Garcia, who had been instrumental in implementing Operation Absurdist Response. They watched as representatives from formerly subjugated species took seats as equal members of the new cooperative. "Did you ever think it would work this well?" Olivia whispered. Peter shook his head. "Not in my wildest dreams. I expected we might confuse them enough to buy time for a military solution. I never imagined they'd embrace change so thoroughly. Turns out even a rigid 3,000-year-old empire can learn new tricks," Olivia replied with a smile. When it came time for the official unveiling of the cooperative charter, Secretary General Miller and the Emperor stood together at the central podium. Behind them, A large display showed the document that would govern relations between formerly imperial worlds and humanity. This charter establishes the principles that will guide our shared future, Miller announced. Equal representation, mutual defense, free cultural exchange, and open commerce, the Emperor nodded. And in recognition of humanity's unique contribution to this historic partnership, Earth will serve as the permanent headquarters for the cooperative's Cultural Exchange Division. What the Emperor didn't say, though everyone knew, was that this position effectively gave Earth control over the spread of information and entertainment throughout cooperative space, an influence far more powerful than any fleet of warships. Now, the Emperor continued, as humans have taught us, no momentous occasion is complete without a symbolic gesture of friendship. From beneath the podium, he produced a small, purple object that Jack recognized as a whoopee cushion. With great ceremony, the Emperor placed it on his chair before seating himself, producing the distinctive sound that had once been considered inappropriate, but now symbolized the unusual friendship between the species. The chamber erupted in laughter and applause. Even High Admiral Jarex, who had opposed the agreement most strongly, allowed himself a small gesture of amusement. Later that evening, at the reception following the ceremony, Dr. Fletcher found himself talking with Lox Uriel, the young Vicarian, who had been among the first to apply to Earth University. Now serving as a cultural attaché, Lox Uriel wore a colorful Earth-style jacket over his traditional Vicarian uniform. "I've been studying human history," Lox Uriel said. "Your species has always used humor and unpredictability as survival mechanisms." Fletcher nodded. "When you can't overpower an opponent, you find other approaches. Throughout our history, rigid empires have always been vulnerable to the unexpected." "The Empire believed power came from control," Lox Uriel observed. "We never understood that true strength comes from adaptation." Across the room, Colonel Lisa Brennan clinked glasses with General Wright. "To Operation Absurdist Response," she said quietly. "The war we won without firing a shot." "To whoopee cushions and cooking shows," Samantha replied with a grin. "The most unlikely weapons in human history." As the celebration continued, Jack Murphy found himself standing beside Admiral Keth Varrick, who still seemed slightly uncomfortable in social settings, but was making a visible effort to adapt. "You planned this all along," the Admiral said, not as an accusation but with something like respect. Jack shook his head. "Not at all. We improvised every step of the way. That's what humans do best. We make it up as we go along." "That is what makes your species so dangerous," Keth Varrick observed, "and so valuable as allies." Jack smiled. "To new friendships," he said, raising his glass. The Admiral awkwardly raised his own. "To absurd responses." Outside the Intergalactic Council headquarters, the lights of human and Vicarian cities shone together against the night sky, a visual reminder that sometimes the most effective answer to aggression isn't more aggression, but something so unexpected that it changes the nature of the conflict entirely. The Empire had declared war on humanity, and in return, humanity had given them pizza, comedy, and freedom. It was, by any measure, the most absurd response possible, and it had worked perfectly.